You will cover all kinds of text, rich text, and graphics here. Even the one in Fusion 3D, and they are very interesting, very cool to use. You will start by learning how to use and animate rich text in the Video tab, and I will show you some presets like the scroll text. Then you will start working with Fusion Text. I'll show you how to work in each tab for Fusion Text and create some awesome text and animations. I didn't leave anything for you to discover by chance. I covered the directions, right on, transform tab, per character, words, lines, the shading tab, and even how to roll and scroll. It's always nicer to add motion blur to your animations. And you will see it's actually very easy in Resolve. Then I'll show you how to work with some Fusion text, some complicated ones, Fusion lower thirds and Fusion titles, without having to go to the complicated Fusion tab yet. Remember guys, in the first section we added a very simple and very dull title, and we wrote thank you for watching in the rich text in fact, and we added a couple of transitions just to make it somehow interesting. So now we want to format this text and take advantage of the rich text, and we want to format on multiple lines, and we'll show you how you can use the multiple lines and where it doesn't work in fact. First of all, I will select the transitions and I will press backspace to delete them. We don't need the transitions anymore. So now this is a rich text. Rich text usually means that you can format this text character per character, word by word, or line by line as you wish, and put all kinds of formatting. So let's start. First of all, let's start adding more text. I will add another line here. I press enter, go up and write Davinci Resolve 15. And I put the bottom line here. I write video editing by Jean-Loup. Jean-Loup is my friend. Now that we have added 3 lines of text, let's start formatting the right way. First of all, I want the text to be centered. So notice I didn't make any selection, so it has centered the 3 lines. If I had made a selection, for example, the top line, I could have formatted the top line alone to the left. I'm going to put it in the center. According to this principle, let's play around with the characters. If you take the size, for example, for the first line, let's make it smaller, okay? And then let's, for example, take the tracking up. That's not bad, okay? But the 15 looks very odd, so I'm going to select only 15 and make the tracking a bit smaller for the 15, so the 1 joins the 5. Okay, that's much better. Then I'm going to select the second line, for example, reduce the font, it seems to me very big, add the tracking, okay, that's not bad like this, and change the color, for example, to bright yellow. Doesn't matter if it looks ugly, I just want to show you. Then the last line now, video editing by Jean-Loup. Jean-Loup is not important, so we're going to make it smaller, okay. We could have changed the fonts, by the way. Let me change it to Calibri. So I changed the font only for the last line. Now I can select the last line and play with the line spacing. Notice because it's the last line, the line spacing is moving everything. I will undo the line spacing. I'll put it back to 0. And then select the second line, for example, and play with the line spacing. Notice how Jean-Loup is being pushed downward. Select the first line, push the line spacing. Okay, now I have something, a bit interesting. Of course, you can come over and play with it the way you would like by selecting and making sure, it looks good for you. So now you have formatted this text, you've changed the font, the colors, line spacing, and stories like this. The things that don't work, when you play with the drop shadow, the stroke, and even the background, it really works on the whole rich text. It does not work on individual lines. So actually, formatting the text stops at alignment, and everything under alignment will apply to the whole text. For example, the rotation angle is for the whole text. So let's add some background here. I'll change the color of the background. First thing I will do, give it a nice background. Let's say go for darkish blue, something like this. Okay. Now the color is there, but the background, if you notice, the height is at 0. I'll show you a simple tip. If you want the background to cover the whole clip, then you put it to 1. Okay, 1, and the height 1, and here you are. Of course, now you take the corner radius and make it 0. So you see, it's the whole clip. It has covered the clip. Now with the background you have some problems, of course, is that the background is connected to the text. So for example, if you try to rotate, here you are, the background is rotating. That's not bad if you want to animate the whole clip. But if you want to animate the lines and keep the background fixed, then you need to use a generator. We'll see that later on in this section. Cool guys, so welcome to formatting rich text, and in the next lecture I will show you how to animate these texts. So in the previous lecture guys, you formatted the text here, you made it as beautiful as you want, and now it's time to animate. But there are a couple of decisions you need to take. The first decision is to animate or not the background of the text. I'm not the kind of guy who will animate the background of the text. I find it very ugly. Unless the background is just a strip, I'm moving it from left to right, yeah, maybe. So you could start animating with the background and put the background off. I prefer to work with the background off, then come to generator and use a solid to create a background. I'll show you in this lecture. The next decision that you have to make is the duration of the clip, and that's very important. If you right click, you have change clip duration or Ctrl D. Now notice this clip is 5 seconds. That's fine. So 1 second for the text to come in, 3 seconds for the viewer to see and read the text, hopefully he's a clever viewer, and 1 second to take the text out. So animation in, stable, animation out. So I click change, I'm okay with 5 seconds. Every graphic clip is composed of 2 tabs, at least 2 tabs. You have the text, which means the content. Sometimes you will have Fusion, and you might have OpenFX if you like. And you have the video. The video is like this clip is an entity by itself, is a video within the timeline. And it's better to animate from over here. If you come to the text, you can animate position within the text, zoom and rotation angle. But then you can also double up with some animations from here. That's cool, complicated, but not so useful by the way. You're doing video editing, you're not in motion graphics. So let's use the video to start animating. We go to the first frame, that's semicolon. I will use shift right arrow to jump 1 second forward. I'll go to video, and let's say here I start with the position. I will keyframe the position. Go back to the first frame, that will be semicolon, and then move the Y. Here you are. You can move it just up like this. Okay, you notice how it jumps. That's why I like using the on-screen controls. I'm gonna take it and put it up just over here. Now, if I moved on the X, I'll come back and put it at 0. Now, 525 is nice. I like round numbers. So 500 will work nice. Now, if I play the animation, Alt X, here you are, it's coming down very nicely. Of course, I need to create an ease out. So I will select this keyframe and then right click and say smooth it. Then I have the bar here, you remember, and the small dot is just over here, the one for the frames. I'll just drag it down. Notice it has jumped. If you play now your animation from in to out, not bad, it's sitting very nicely. Now let's take it out. So we will go to the last frame, shift left arrow to move 1 second backward, come back to video, and let's take it out with the zoom. So I will keyframe the zoom here, so it's stable. Then I'll go to the last frame, that's apostrophe, and then put the zoom to 0. Let's play and see exactly if you like it. Okay, we need it to render a bit. My computer is overworked. Okay, not bad. Let's remove the controls and see it. Cool. I will stop it here. Then open the keyframes and scroll it down. Notice I have zoom X and zoom Y. Let's open the curve editor. I will select these 2 keyframes, 1 and 2. So I press shift and selected the second one. Just come over here and make them a ease out. Here you are. So they have both ease out. Okay, you can see the X is eased out and the Y is eased out. Fine. Let's close them both. We know what they're gonna do. Play our animation. Here you are. Not bad at all. Now let's add a background. I will come to generators, okay, and there is a solid background. This is just one single solid color, very much in use. Click and drag and put it under. So I want it at the same time as the text clip. So I'll click and just, adjust it the way it's supposed to be. Select the background and Give it a name, that will be nice. Let's say background text. Come to color and change to color to something beautiful. Nope, nope, nope. Okay, you can play like me, or you can be serious. Just choose the right color. Okay, I'm gonna put it over here. I hope you can see it well, and that's okay. Now, if I play, it's pretty nice, but the background is really not moving at all, and somehow, if I come over here, it doesn't work. It's just a cut. So how I'm gonna fix that? Well, usually this is what I do. I will take the text clip up, take the background up, and then come to transitions and mainly use the blur dissolve on both. So on the video and the background. Now notice the effect here. I'm gonna take it to over here and play it. Here you are. Okay, we need to give it some time to render. It's becoming blue, as you notice. Not bad at all. It's pretty beautiful, right guys? So actually you really have created a title or an outro here, Davinci Resolve 15. I hope you come over and create a nice outro for yourself and add more text or remove text, and maybe you add some clips over here to say bye-bye, or of you saying bye-bye, whatever you like, guys. Okay, so I expect you to do this assignment here to create your outro. In the titles here, you have the option to add scroll text to your timeline. Scroll text at face value might not seem interesting, but here I'm gonna give you a couple of tips that will make scroll text pretty interesting. If you click and drag, you will drop a scroll text clip in the timeline. If you scrub through, you will notice that you have the word title. If you select your clip, this is the content of the text, going from outside the clip on the bottom to outside the clip on top. And if you mark it and you play, you will notice that the duration of the scroll is equal to the duration of the clip. Just makes sense, right? So if you increase your clip here, then you will increase also the duration of the scroll. Give it some time to render and it will be excellent. Now, this seems like, what are you gonna do with this? First of all, you can change the text, of course. Unfortunately, the text is not a rich text, meaning if you have multiple lines, all the lines will have the same formatting from the formatting over here. Let's change the text first. Let's write awesome jumps. And then you can choose another font. I will take Antonio, not good at all. I'll go back to Arial, that's cool. Okay, and it's normal here. You can change the font size. Now it starts to get interesting when you play with the alignment. If you center it, for example, the text is gonna scroll in the center of the clip from bottom till top and until it exits. You can add also some shadows. Let's do that. Let's add some very simple shadow, just like this. Okay, just to see the clip. Now the background color here is very interesting, but it does not scroll. So you add the background height, and you notice when you scrub through, it's not gonna scroll. Well, that's very good because there is a very useful application for the background. I'm gonna put off the background for now and add the text here. I'm gonna copy it from outside. I'll do copy, come over here and do paste. Now, if you play, notice what's gonna happen. From outside the clip, you can now tell a very nice story of what's happening. Simple and easy to work with. But now it's still not very interesting. How about if you come to the on-screen controls? And of course, you know, you can stretch down your clip, okay? And just you can put it over here. If the text is too small, for example, now, I'll put it left alignment. I'm gonna stretch it down, okay? You can just increase the size of the text. Now it's becoming a bit more interesting. I think I went too far, okay. Now, if you play your clip, the text is scrolling according to the binding box of the text clip. And that's becoming more interesting now. Let's see what you can do with the background. I'll go back to the on-screen controls, and I think this is cool. Okay, let's make it a bit smaller, just like this. Make the size a bit bigger, so I'm adjusting it. This is the story of 5 guys, so I'm at the limit. Maybe I'll make it a bit smaller. Okay, let's also center it in this case. And then let's come and put on the background. I showed you a tip before. If you put 1 and 1, it will fill the clip. Here you are. Now it's full on the clip. If you don't want any corner radius, you notice there is corner here. You can just put it off at 0. So you have just a square or a rectangle. I'm going to give it the value, a very small value. Okay, just like this. And now if you play, it's becoming much more interesting. You notice, guys? So you have a highlighted area where the text is scrolling in. Now that becomes a bit more useful, and that becomes, up to your imagination and what can you create with that. So this is how to use the scroll text. Now in DaVinci Resolve, as a rule, please be creative. Please always try to find out what can you do more. Within titles, you have the text plus or the fusion text. Now notice when there is a thunder here, it means it's all built in Fusion. Now the fusion text, you can use it in the edit page. If you click and drag, you can put a fusion text here. You click on the text and you have very many tabs and very many options. Usually you will add a fusion text and go to your fusion page, and you can see the clip for fusion text over here. You notice if you go around the timeline, you cannot see the text clips here. They don't belong to Fusion, they belong to the edit page. But Fusion text usually will put it in the edit page, and you come over here, you have the same tabs, and you do all kind of work. Of course, adding more effects and stories like this in the Fusion. But nevertheless, you don't have to be an advanced user and learning about Fusion to work some very nice options here and settings and animations for your text. So the Fusion text has 6 different tabs where you can do animation and settings. You have the text tab, you have the layout, the transform, the shading, the image, and the settings. In the text tab is all about setting your text and formatting it, including using direction, line direction, and the write on, and some other options I will show you later on. Very interesting. In the layout tab, it's actually about the layout of your text, and it's based on 3 kinds of layout: point, frame, and circle. We see each one of them, and the rotation now will depend on these options. In the transform tab, it becomes a bit more interesting, where you can transform per character, per words, per line, do rotation, shear, and sizing. In the shading tab, you will be actually working on the appearance of the text with softness and its position, if you like, the rotation and shear. Most interesting is softness and shear over here. And also you can have outline text and stories like this, pretty interesting. And the most interesting is having the gradient. In the image tab is not going to be interesting for you now until you become an advanced user in Fusion. In settings, the only thing that will make sense to you is the motion blur. We'll see how it's going to work. One important note here: these tabs are interrelated. You might change something in the layout tab, for example, from point to frame, and some other options will pop up in the text tab, and vice versa if you like, somehow. So don't be confused if you come back to one tab and see something has disappeared or something has appeared. Keep in mind that they work together. In the next lecture, we are going to focus on the text tab, and I will show you a few interesting things that you can use immediately. As agreed, let's start with the text tab. First, I already copied some text to the clipboard. I will just paste it. Now, to see the text clearly and see exactly what we are doing, let's add a generator, a solid color, just drop it under this clip. And let's change a bit the color to make it somehow fancy and you're happy watching the course, okay? So I will take this color down. Cool, that will make it nice. Unfortunately, when you look at the text, you notice it is not a rich text. So the formatting will go for every line within the style text. The first thing, you have the font. I'm gonna change the font to Arial. So when I back up the project, you all have it. I'm gonna make it just a normal, regular. Here you are. Then of course you can change the size. You make it big or small the way you would like. Now notice this small dot that appeared here. This dot means if you click on it, you will reset it. It goes back to the initial value. So I'll click on it. Here you are. It's back to 0.08. You also have the tracking. You know already that, and the small dot. Now notice what's happening here. You have a vertical anchor and you have three choices, and you have vertical anchor, and you have a bar. The purpose of this is to make refined adjustments, very specific adjustments. For example, if I put the vertical anchor to top, so the anchor point is on top of the text here, and it's not exactly the position I want, I can come to vertical anchor slide bar and just adjust it the way I like, just over here, for example. If I want to reset it, I'll just press on the small dot. Now here you have the directions. I will start with the line directions. If you scroll it down, you'll notice you have two more options. Top down, that is exactly what we're doing. The text that I put here is coming from top to down. And you have down to up. So notice my text now has been reversed in terms of lines. The lines are going up instead of down. This is very useful. If you're doing a scroll and you want the viewer to read the last line, then go up, then this is the settings to use. I will return it to automatic. Now let's look at direction. To show it to you clearly, I'm going to cut the text. Okay, I'll do Ctrl X here. And if you come to direction tool down, you have the option left to right. This is what we are doing now. We're writing from left to right. You have a right to left. So actually you inverse the direction of the text. And also you have top to down. Here you are. Very nice. And then you have bottom to up. Now I will take it back to automatic and restore the text. Ctrl V. My favorite here is the right on. It will write on the text on the screen. So you have here right on the start, okay, and you have the end. So if you take the end and scroll towards the left, you will notice that the text is disappearing. Actually, it's going character per character. So this is a nice animation to do. Let's say you are on the first frame. You can keyframe the right on. Come, for example, after 3 seconds. That's 1, 2, 3. I'm using shift right arrow. And then click and take it back to 1. Here you are. You have another keyframe created. Now, if you play your text, it's writing, character per character. When you're using Fusion Clips, guys, you need the blue line to appear. I hope in your playback you came to render cache and put it to smart. Cool. So now it's all blue. Let's loop it. See exactly what's happening. So at the default state, without doing any changes to the other tab, this is the main purpose of the text tab. And in the next lecture, we'll proceed to the other tab. Let's go now to the layout tab and see exactly what you can do here. The background will not appear with you. It's in Fusion. So I'll turn it up and twirl down the rotation where you're going to have something amazing here. So you have 3 important states here. The point, frame, and circle. I will start with point, which is almost like a frame. So you have the X and Y, you're just moving your text left and right. Okay, as simple as this. Unfortunately, there is no undo here. So I'm going to write 0.5 again. And the Y the same. Now, it starts to be very interesting on the center Z. This is like a camera. You can zoom in and go past the camera. Notice we didn't scale up, we zoomed in past the camera, and you can of course zoom out, moving the camera away until you hit the background, for example. Now you have the size, which is exactly a scale, nothing more, nothing less, and it stops at 1. But if you combine the center Z and the size, you could get some very nice effects for your text. Now the perspective will do nothing for now because we didn't do anything with the rotation. It gets very interesting when you come to the rotation. You have rotation X, you rotate on the X, and I love this bar here, it's so nice. Let's put it, for example, just like this, okay? Then you can rotate on the Y, let's do it like this, and you can rotate on the Z, okay? Pretty cool. Let's put it just over here. So you have your text in 3D somehow. Now, the perspective, it creates a perspective for the text from this point, the rightmost, if you like. Notice if I take it down, notice how the text is moving. But if I take it up, you have created a very nice perspective here. You can even scale it down if you like, or zoom in. You can also adjust the X and Y, so you can set it the way you would like. So it's kind of perspective text. If you go to frame, it's going to be exactly the same. You have the Z, you have the size, and I'm going to reset all of them. This is a perspective reset. and you have retained the XYZ. Now the frame here will add some option in the text that we'll see later on. When you come to circle, first of all, I will reset the transitions and put this as 0.5. I'm gonna go to circle now. The circle will take your text on a circle path. You have the Y, for example, you can take it down. Okay, notice. So the Z, same, is gonna zoom in and zoom out. It's like a camera. And of course you have the scale. And you have the width, that's the width of the circle. If you make it up, for example, take down, you can adjust how the curve is happening for the circle. Perspective, of course, is tied to the rotation. You have several options here. Adjust spacing to fit, that's one option. This is the one we're working with. Adjust horizontal size to fit. So you adjusted the size so it can fit somehow. I don't like it personally. And then you have adjust size to fit. So this is better because the last line is smaller in character than the top line. And of course, feel free to do any kind of animation here. So you can also use the X rotation, the Y rotation if you like, and the Z rotation. So you have some extraordinary text that you need really to work on to make it very beautiful. Now, I will go back to frame, okay? So, we need to reset these values. I will reset the width. I will reset the Y, type back 0.5, and reset the rotation, okay? By staying on frame, some changes happened in the text tab, where another option, the scroll, has been added. So I'm gonna go back here and we continue in the next lecture to go to transform and see what we can do. We are now in the transform tab. Within the transform tab, you have the choice to do transformation on characters, words, lines. And the transformation available are rotation, shear, and size. Within the transform group here, you have what you want to transform, the characters, the words, or the lines. You have the spacing, and you have 3 pivot points that will affect the rotation. Now, it's going to take very long if I want to give you an example on each, but I want you to get, a big picture of how this operates. If you are in character, for example, and use the spacing, you will notice you are spacing each character. So you're putting more space in between every character. If you're using words, now you are having some spacing in between the words. Very useful when you're doing video editing and you want a proper text. When you use lines, of course, the spacing is going to be in between lines. Now, when you come to rotation here, the pivots, that's X, Y, and Z, will affect a lot the rotation. Let's go back to characters, and you can rotate the characters on their own axis. It's like there is an axis just flat here under the characters, and you're rotating on this X axis. Okay? Simple like this. When you come to Y, you will be rotating on the Y axis. Okay, I don't know if you can imagine a 3D axis here. If you go on the Z, it's gonna rotate on the Z axis. That's the normal plane rotation that we always use. If you change the pivot point, then the axis will move, for example, and they will rotate a bit differently. If you want to rotate on the X axis, pivot X will not make any difference. But you can use pivot Y and pivot Z. I'm gonna add the pivot Z and show you how the rotation now will be on the X. Notice how it's like the center of the rotation now is just behind here and it's rotating like a cylinder. Okay, notice? Okay, pretty cool. Then if you change, for example, the Y, is going to have another effect. I'm going to give it a big value. And when you rotate on the X, it's like having the rotation center just in the middle somewhere in 3D plan, something like this. You can create some cool animations here. I will reset the Y. You can use, of course, the Y rotation for character. Here you are. You can adjust the Z now. So notice how the rotation is coming up. Pretty nice. Well, it depends a lot about what you want to do. Now, if you go to words, you will be rotating, of course, you guessed it, words. I'll go for the Y and notice how the words are rotating. Now, the center of the rotation for the Y now is in the middle of the word because they are all 0, 0, 0. If you change, for example, the X, so most probably it has moved to the left, and you rotate, here you are, Pretty nice. If you give it a bigger value, quite big, notice how it's going to rotate now, coming out and coming in. And I'm sure you can figure out if you combine Y and Z for X and X and Z for Y and stories like this, you'll end up with very nice animation here and very nice rotation. I will take lines. Okay, this is the one you are going to use. And if I rotate on the Y-axis, notice rotating on the middle of all the lines. So all the lines are going to rotate at once. But then I will reset this one and I move the X very far. And notice now the rotation is quite nice. You can bring in the text and slam it in, depending on what you want to do and how you want to do your work, of course. I will reset the pivot X. I invite you to come along and play with the lines, characters, words, and do all kinds of rotations. Let's move on to shears. If it is character or whatever, shear does not change. You just have a kind of italic, yes or no, the way you would like it. Okay, negative or positive, left and right. The pivot points will not affect the shear at all. Now you have the sizing. If you are in character, you are sizing each character. Okay, notice what's happening. I'll put back the pivot X 0, okay, just to be in the center. And notice now the sizing is happening for every character on the X or on the Y. If you go to words, now you will be sizing each word. Okay, now on the Y, it will be like character, the same. Now, if you go to lines, it becomes a bit more interesting. The X will stretch your line. The Y will still stretch the characters, of course, stretching the whole line. You can add some spacing, see exactly how it happens. I invite you to come over and play. And the possibilities here are infinite. I can't possibly give you all of them. But try to set X, Y, Z pivot points and then play with the rotation. Use the size, see how the X pivot affect the size, and so on, until you have a good picture of what you can do in the Transform tab. We are now in the Shading tab. I want to look at Properties and Softness. Let's turn down Property. And the first thing you look at is the appearance. You can have a text fill or a text outline. Here you are. So now your text has only an outline. You can adjust the thickness if you like. Okay, play with it the way you want. You can have outside only, which is thinner, or inside and outside on the outline, of course. Okay, I'll put it to outside. Then you have the line style here for the outline. You can have it dashes, you can have it dots, you can have it, I don't know, dash dots and semaphore. That's what I call it. So you have now dash, dot, dot, dash, and stories like this. Cool. From here on, you start with the color. The type of color, you can have solid, image, or gradient. Let's go back to text fill. Let's zoom in at fit. You can change the type of the fill to gradient. Okay, that's the one we want to talk about. So the gradient starts from black to white. You can change this color. Select the first arrow and then let's make it red. And the second arrow, let's make it yellow. Okay, I want it to look good for you. I hope you can see it very well. What determines the style of the gradient are these four properties here. Mapping angle, mapping size, mapping aspect, and the mapping level. I will start with the mapping level. You can go, for example, for full image. Full image means the whole clip. So now the gradient will start from the bottom till top, and by the way, fills the text with the gradient. That's cool. But then you can have text only. So the gradient will start only on the text. The bottom line will be filled with the first color and the top line will be filled with the last color. You notice how it's going just from the last line to the top line. Now you can also have it applied to each line. Notice now the gradient goes for each line from the bottom of the line to the top of the line. Pretty convenient. Of course, you can have it word, but we're not going to see a difference now. And you can have it also by character. Let's go by word, and I'll show you how the mapping angle and the rest can work. If you click on the mapping angle and you just scrub through, it has changed the gradient start and end. Now it's ending on the right and starting on the left. You can play with it the way you would like to adjust how you want your gradient to go. We're working on every word from the beginning till the end of the word. And let's see the mapping size. So now you're mapping it. Let's say put it at 0. Notice that it's become just a cut, so the gradient in between is gone. And then you can put it maximum. It becomes very soft. Okay, so that is the mapping size. Now when you come to mapping aspect here, if you take it up, notice trying to blur it as much as possible, and down it becomes also just a simple cut. So actually you can come over and play and decide, okay, if you want to put it on every word or every character, here you are. Let's take down the mapping. Notice what's happening. Change the angle. So really you are filling every single word with the gradient. Let's remove the gradient and go to solid. And I want to show you about the softness here. So notice you can blur on the X, okay, or blur on the Y, okay. From time to time, you're going to have problems here where it disappears. Don't worry about it. It can still work. So this is the blurring effect. Let's make it a bit small, just like this, okay. And then you can come over and add the softness. I will add the softness. This is the softness glow. So it's going to glow if you notice. So this is the softness that is glowing. Now you have softness blend is about how much softness you want. Let's zoom in. I will show you. And then if you take it down, notice what's happening here. So the glow is actually going down. So now we are adjusting how much blur and glow and the softness of the glow you want. So actually the softness blend is the final touch you put to your softness or to your blur, whatever you like to call it. So this is all I want to mention about this tab. I hope this was nice. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. And now you know how to put gradient to your colors, how to add softness and glow it. Remember guys, I mentioned that these tabs are interconnected. So if you come to the layout tab and you choose frame, you will notice that in the text tab now, you have the scroll option, which has 3 options: the roll and the scroll and the steal. Let's try the roll. And you have here the scroll position. So it's a rolling now. And that's what's happening. Here you are. You can create now an animation scrolling the text. But honestly, if you come to titles and use scroll, it's much interesting than this one, because you will have problems animating it. The next option will be quite interesting. It's the scroll option. Now you notice the scroll here. You can just scroll left or right. And of course, you can create a very simple animation here using the scroll, of course, if you have the Fusion text. This is one way to scroll your text or scroll your text if you like to use it. You can establish the keyframes, it's very easy, and you have a simple scroll if you don't want to animate with the video tab just over here. In this lecture, guys, I want to show you how the motion blur will work for you. Sometimes it's very beautiful to have a motion blur, and sometimes it's really not beautiful, you don't want it. Now, you can enable the motion blur from the Settings tab. The first note is motion blur will only work on animations that are within Fusion. If you do any animation within the video, you will not see any motion blur. It has to be within Fusion. So let's create first an animation, then we'll come back and we enable the motion blur and see the difference. To create a good animation, I'm going to go to the transform over here and use lines and create an animation on the y-axis here. So let's say after some time, a few frames, not much, maybe a second to the maximum, I'm going to keyframe the y-axis here. So this is where I want the text. Now I'm going to come back to the beginning and take the text to -90. So now you have a full rotation here. But I'm going to change the pivot point. It's already changed, but I'm going to show you how it happens. So actually it was just like this. Then you click and you drag it to the left. Notice with the pivot Z, you are removing the text from the frame. Here you are, just over here. Yep, it will do. Let's run this animation. I'll play from in and out. Give it time to render. I can see it very nicely. So you notice there is totally no motion blur here at all. The character has been seen quite normally. Let's go back to settings, enable motion blur. Now you have several settings here. The quality here, you can increase it. And notice the quality of the motion. I'm already having problems here. So the quality of the motion blur is better. So the shadows, or what we call samples, are more blurred if you like. I'm going to keep it to 2. Having set the motion blur, let's come back to our clip. Press Alt / or Option / to play from in and out. Give it time to render, and you can see it's a beautiful motion blur. Not bad. Actually, this is all about the motion blur. It's very easy to use, but remember, it's only in Fusion. From within the Fusion titles, you have very many lower third and titles, be it in 3D or 2D, that you can use, and they are meant to be used from within the edit page. Each one of them will have certain settings that you can change and customize from within the inspector. I'm going to take a few examples here and show you, and each one of them will give you a certain experience. I will start with something very simple, is the title center reveal. You can click and drag and drop it within your timeline. Now, the first thing I would like you to do is to select it, right click, and go to change clip duration. Now, you notice that the clip duration here is 5 seconds, but this is not really the duration of the animation. The 5 seconds is the standard duration of a still clip. If you come to Davinci Resolve, Preferences, inside User, inside Editing, you will find standard still duration is 5 seconds. Of course, you can change it from here. But actually, this animation is not only 5 seconds, it's a bit more. Let me show you. I will select it, press X to mark it, and then just extend it a bit, the marking, so we can play a bit more than the in and out of the clip. Now, if you play your clip, you will notice that you have an in animation and you have the stable, and then it cuts. Well, it seems like we are not completing the animation from here. Usually, any lower third or any title will have an in animation, then a still duration for the viewer to read it, then an out animation, you need to remove it, or a reverse animation sometimes. In our case here, we have only the in animation, if you notice, and then we have nothing. Okay, so it seems that this clip is short. The way to know that it's short is very easy. I will extend it, that's first. Okay, you can go on trying, or you can select it, press Ctrl R or Command R on the Mac for retime controls, if you remember. And you notice you have some blue arrows here and then nothing. It's a bit unusual, right? This is a Fusion clip, remember? It does not obey 100% the laws of a video clip. So if you come over here at the end, there is still a part of the animation that we didn't see, is the exit animation. Here you are, and it ends over here. So actually, it's a bit more than 5 seconds, and that's important. Now, if you leave the clip like this, which has more time than the animation, it's okay because you can't see anything. If I enable the video below, you notice I don't see anything. It's okay. So you can also trim it if you like to be very precise. I will keep it up. Let's take another clip here. I will extend this one and bring this over here. I want to show you another one, which is the title text ripple. It has a purpose why I want to show you this one. I will click and drag and drop it over here. Now that I know it's more than 5 seconds, I could press Ctrl R and extend it with the trim, not the timing, with just the trim. Okay, and notice, okay, it's maybe finishes over here. Actually, they are the same timing. If you come over and play from in and out, here you are, you notice that there is the in animation, very nice ripple. Then it stays on the screen, of course, and then there is the out. Pretty cool, right, guys? So actually now you know about the timing. I will stop it here. I'm going to take the last one I want to show you is the 3-line drop in title. I'll click and drag and drop it over here. Put the timeline here and mark it, extend the marking a bit. And from the right, just to show you, I'm going to extend it blindly. I know it's going to take more time. And if I come to the beginning and I play it, you notice here you have 3 titles and it's a very nice animation. It's really elegant. So you can start using this one in your videos. I mentioned that you can customize it. There is a limit to the customization. It means you can change the text, change colors and so on, but you cannot play with the animation itself. I'll show you a tip later on how to retime it. It will be quite interesting how to make it longer or shorter. Let's select this clip, and you notice you have in the inspector here 3 tabs for this animation, the 3-line drop. The one on top is top text controls. You can format the top text and add motion blur if you like to. Then you can come over to the headline. You can change the title. You can add motion blur if you like to, and then change the colors, whatever you like. You are actually formatting. And the bottom one text also, change the colors, format it the way you'd like, and add motion blur. This is the only customization available for this clip. Let's take this clip now. So within the inspector now, you have different kind of tabs. You have the main text control is formatting the text. There is no motion blur here. Of course, it's all rippled. And then you have the text glow controls. So you can add the glow size, add the glow itself, or reduce the glow, blend it with the background or something like this. And the third one is about the colors of the glow. You can decide which color you want to use, for example, green, whatever you like. And the last one is the ripple size control. If I go back just a bit, somewhere where it has rendered, for example, over here, you can change the ripple size. Let's make it less. Notice how it's rippling less now. The last one, or the first one, in fact, you only have one single tab for formatting the text, and that's it. So now you can use all the Fusion titles. You know about the timing and you know how to adjust them in the inspector controls. And in the next lecture, I'm going to show you how to retime them, how to make the animation longer or shorter. We are not going to work on the animation. I'm going to just play a trick from here. You might have noticed, guys, that if you change the speed for a Fusion title clip, it's not going to work. Just give you some blank frames there, empty ones, or it's going to cut it. The speed change here does not work. That's because this is a Fusion clip that has a ton of keyframes. I don't know, some of them are really complicated. You need to go back to the keyframes to change the timing. But sometimes you want to use this and you want to keep it very simple and change or retime the speed within the edit page. The workaround is like this. You right click and you create a new compound clip. Let's call it center reveal. And you create. Now, if you remember, you come to your media pool. In my compound bin here, you will find the center reveal clip. Now we have some kind of a video clip, and inside it, there is some Fusion, some motion graphics, whatever. You could call it a video. Now, to render it very fast, what I'm going to do is to right click and go to Render Cache Fusion and put it on. So whatever Fusion is inside is rendered, and now I can play with the video clip. Notice when it gets blue, how it's going to be very smooth to play with this clip and change its timing. Now it's blue totally. I press Ctrl R for speed change, and I can, for example, come to the small arrow here, say speed change, and make it 200%. So I'm going to increase the speed. If I play from in and out, you notice that everything sped up. The in animation, the time in between, and the out animation, everything is speedy. That's one solution. Maybe you don't want this. You want to retime it even better. No problem. You can come over here, okay, and determine where is the end of the in animation. Okay, just over here. For example, you're happy with that. Okay, of course, you know that now. You add the speed point. Then you come at the end and determine the beginning of the out animation. Here you are. Okay, just over here. And then, of course, you add a speed point. So now you have 3 segments. What you can do now is decide, okay, I want to increase the speed on the in and out and keep the time in between constant. So I'll change the speed here and make it, for example, 150. The same here. But 150 will not give us the same timing because we have some blank clips here. Nevertheless, I'm going to change it to 150. Here you are. So now, if you play it from in and out, it's speedy, it stays the same time, but it looks longer. Then here, it's much faster. You can do the contrary, for example. Let's reset the speed to 100%, and here also reset speed to 100%. And then in the middle here, just in the middle here, I'm gonna change the speed to 50%. So I made it much longer, the pausing over here, the still period. Then let's play from in and out point. Notice how it's rendering so fast now. Here you are, you have a longer time over here. And of course, you can change the timing of the in and out animations. Now guys, you have a full control of the Fusion titles, and I encourage you to come over and play with them. You remember this Fusion clip, guys? We used it to work on the Fusion text all over the tabs. To see it clearly, we had to put a solid color just for the sake of the course. But let's imagine now you really want to use this text, so you need to remove the solid color. And I'm gonna go ahead and remove it by pressing backspace after selecting the solid. Unfortunately, you cannot see your text here. You might need some kind of shadow. There is a way to create a shadow, in fact a very nice shadow within Fusion. First of all, make sure that this text is final and the blur here, the motion blur, is also final, and you're very happy from what you have. The only thing that you want to create is the shadow. So the way I'll do it is to select this clip, press Alt, and just drag it down to duplicate it. On the Mac, you will be pressing Option, click and drag to duplicate it. So I have two clips on top of each other that are identical in text and motion. Come to the bottom clip and go to the shading. Within shading, I will change the color to black. For example, you can use any color you like. So actually, I still don't see much. But if I go to softness and increase the softness, for example, to around 3, something like this, okay? I like actually to type the figures here. I'm going to put 3 and another 3 here. So I have 100% exactly the same. Already you can see a kind of a shadow, if you like, or an outline. This is already very beautiful. But you can tweak it by increasing the glow if you like. That's what's going to happen. Here you are, more. Depends on what you're doing. Now it's very thick. It's a bit ugly. I'll go back to lower values. Here, I think this is fine. Just over here. Give it a second to render and show me. Then I can play with the blend here, reduce the blend a bit. Okay, if I'm happy, that's it. Now, if you run your animation, I press Alt /. That's quite beautiful here. Hopefully you worked on your motion blur a bit better than I have done here. So this is one way to do it. Now we have two clips here on top of each other. If this is bothering you, of course, you can select both of them and right click and say New Compound Clip. And give it a nice name. For us here, let's say Text with Shadows. And click Create. Wow, notice what happened here. You have a black background. Obviously, you're going to have a black background because this became like a video clip and its background is black. To overcome this is very easy. Select your clip and you go to Composite mode. Now, there are so many that you can use here, but you want a mode that will not affect the below track. We'll go through composite mode later on. I will click and go for add. Add will work very fine. Actually, add will remove the blacks. So now, if you notice, if I put it off, there is no change to the video. I still have the same colors. The composite mode just removed the black from the top clip. So now you have some kind of shadows. They are very beautiful. You can tweak them the way you would like. And remember, you can right click and say open in timeline. You can come over here and decide maybe to do some more work or something. So it's very clear over here. So this was this small tip for you to add some shadows within Fusion. But also it's more than adding shadows, guys. It's also trying to design a bit more your text and be creative a bit. Let's say you want to create this kind of effect, where the video is seen only through the text. Well, it's very easy tip using the composite for the videos. Let me show you how it works. Usually you put the text on top of the video. In our case here, you want to composite the video so it appears only through the text. So it's just logical to take the video and put it on top of the text, just like this. Now you can see the text. If you select your video and go to composite mode, if you choose add, for example, now you're able to see the text because it has added the colors between the video and the text clip. So the add will just brighten the whites if you like. Now, there is another option here that you can always use, is the multiply. It's a very powerful option that you will see it almost in all video editing software. If you select multiply, so it has multiplied the color of the video with the text. And since the text is white, you will have this effect with the multiply. Okay, that was a short tip. I hope you like it. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.